Hi, this is Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're going to be doing a walkthrough service here on this Ocean City Inductor Model 255. Okay, and if you go on the YouTube channel, I've got a whole series of some videos on the Inductor models here. But essentially, the 255 is the Levelwind version of the Inductor. Didn't have a very long run, only for a couple of years. But we're going to be doing all the take apart steps and the cleaning, just doing a walkthrough. I've already serviced this reel recently, but I wanted to do this walkthrough video. Kind of a rare bird, not a lot of these out there really, being that it had such a short run. Okay, so we're going to start simply with taking off the handle side here. So we've got three big thumb screws on this model, whereas the 250 model only has one of these. But quality parts on these Ocean City reels for sure. They were made very, very well, made from quality metals and components and whatnot. I did have to do a little bit of restoration on this model. It had a little bit of pitting and a little bit of corrosion, very typical for a reel this age. Functionality-wise, it's a very smooth operator. It was just very much in need of some cleaning and some TLC and whatnot. And I wanted to do all that off camera, but I do have other videos on cleaning and just specific service points on pretty much any fishing reel. And you can check out some of those separate videos on the YouTube channel. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I did. Okay, so there's your handle side, comes right off. As you can see, it's beautiful on the inside. And then there's this great big gigantic plate here. As you can see, though, this is an early generation Levelwind reel. And this, it's got a huge metal gear inside here. And we're going to get into all of that, but we're going to get some trays out here to catch all these pieces and parts here. Okay, so we've got our spool. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the non-handle side here. Okay, so you want to clean out this bushing down here really well. You clean that off. Apply some fresh reel grease in there. I'm using Penn Precision Blue Grease for this. Okay, but you want to make sure you get all that cleaned off. Make sure you hit your clicker tongue with a little bit of that blue grease. This clicker tongue happens to be pretty worn out. Okay, I find with the inductors, there's really not a lot of need to remove the magnet plate, this eddy current brake system. It can be done. You can certainly do it, but I don't find it's really that necessary unless there's a bunch of sand or dirt caught up in there, or if it looks like it's got some corrosion damage. These aren't really like that. So, but what you can do is you can spray just a little bit of WD-40 down in there and let that work its way in there. But if you did want to remove it, there are two screws in these positions that you have to take out. Okay, and you pull those out. And and of course you need to take this plate off, in its entirety. So, the four outer screws, and then you take the plate off, and then you can take these two screws off, and then you can pull out that magnet plate, and you can get behind there and clean that. Okay, this is actually in pretty clean shape. All right, but now here we've got our Levelwind worm gear and the wire and the pawl that's in there. Okay, so all this is in great shape. I'm not going to remove the pawl, but you take that screw out to do it. Okay, and there's a pawl in there. It's got two little forks in there. Okay, but this is actually in great shape considering its age. Okay, but you want to make sure that you clean these parts off really well. Take this, some WD-40 or some penetrating oil, clean it all up really well, okay, and then you're good to go. All right, and then do any other cleaning that's necessary. Getting any grime or dirt or dust or anything like that off. Okay, off of there completely. Okay, and then when you go to put this back, you want to take some real oil. Okay, just do a little bead of that on there like so. Okay, a little bit of blue grease on the ends here, just a little bit. You don't have to get carried away with it. Okay, and then this is ready to go back. And then I also like to just do a little dab of real oil right here. Okay, and then you put that back into place like so. Actually go back through here first. Okay. It's actually a great simple design. It works really, really well. It's effective, okay? But that's essentially it, okay? Check your screws. Make sure that there isn't any signs of corrosion or rust inside this inner ring here. You'd be surprised how gummed up that can get sometimes, okay? But we're going to put that off to the side now that those things are done. Take some 4-0 steel wool to these shafts, clean them up real good, and then take some blue grease to those shafts, okay? And then your spool is done. Okay, so now we're going to get into the business end here on the handle side, all right? So it's actually pretty basic. There's not much to it. In Ocean City, reels were popular for including a wrench that attaches to the handle. Also a very, very cool thing, courtesy of Ocean City. Take your handle off, like so. I did find that this the threads on this bridge shaft are pretty tight. I think the reel it probably didn't get used a whole bunch. Okay. And the sleeve should come off, like so. Okay. I like to get the trays laid out and get all these pieces and parts, laid out there, in front of me. Okay, so we've got 4 bridge screws, okay? Pretty typical design, for a reel such as this. And we're going to take those screws out, and we're going to disassemble this whole end of the reel bit by bit. But yeah, this is actually a beautiful specimen. Once again, there's not a lot of these out there. And you can say that they are rare, especially in this condition, I'd say. The 250 model, the non-Levelwind version of this, was much more popular and had a much longer run, closer to a 10-year run. And, once again, it's got the magnetic eddy current brake system that was developed by PG&E and Ocean City. And I've got those other YouTube videos talking about the back history of that design a little bit, just kind of in basic form. There's a lot of information out there on the internet that you can find for those things. Okay, so you just want to make note and use some caution when you start doing this. There's pieces and parts, okay? So just make note of that, okay? And be careful as you're doing it, okay? Loosen up this screw here so you can lift up this fork. This little lever fork here. Okay, so as you can see, our pieces and parts, they're all coming out now, like so. And we're just going to take all this apart, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And we'll put it all back together. Okay, so once you have all these parts out, okay, you want to clean this housing out the best that you can. Okay, take toothbrushes, penetrating oils, okay, clean it up real well. Okay, get all the dirt, the grime, the dust, sand, old grease, anything of that sort, get it out of there, clean it up the best that you can. Take some degreaser. You could take some Purple Power degreaser to it and clean it up. Okay, whatever it takes to get it clean. Okay, you want to get all these pieces and parts cleaned off. Right, take the penetrating oil, clean off all these gear teeth with the help of brass wire brushes. Don't use steel wire brushes. Use brass. It won't scar up the metal. Toothbrushes, Q-tips. All those are tools of the trade when you're working on any fishing reel, for cleaning, okay? So you want to do that. Okay, now we're going to talk about our bridge assembly and our drag stack, okay? Now this reel had a problem when I first did the service on it. This washer that resides behind the main gear, in between the main gear and the top, at the bottom here of the bridge sleeve, okay, and it needed to be replaced. I've actually still got it right here. It had a big crack in it, okay, and this is what happens over time. These parts and components, they fray and they crack, and you know, they need to be replaced, okay? So that's just something that you want to note. Now, we're going to talk about our bridge here, okay? So typical bridge design, there's a pin here that needs to come out. Now, I had a hard time getting this one out, but I did get it out. I'm going to try to do it real simply here with the help of this nail punch right here. But I think it's going to give me some grief like it did last time, okay? And so what I had to do is get this in a vise and really punch down on this to get that out, okay? And so I'm going to do that off camera real quick, and we're going to come back so that you can see the inside of this. Okay, so I just gave that a quick tap in the vise, and now I'm able to get it out. Okay, you should be able to take a pair of needle nose at this point and pull that pin out. It is rather stiff, I will admit, though. Okay, but you can get it out there, okay, with the help of a pair of needle nose. All right, and then you want to clean this sleeve out. Take a Q-tip, clean it out really well. Clean these threads off with that brass wire brush. Okay, get it clean. Okay, then when you go back, take the 4-0 steel wool to this shaft, clean it off really well. Take your reel oil, a little bead of oil there. Okay, you can use grease too if you want. I like using oil. I find that it makes for a much smoother operation, but just a bead of it, not a bunch. You don't want to soak it and immerse it in oil, because that oil will ooze into your drag stack and it'll affect the operation, okay, and you don't want that. All right, pin is going to go back in like so. And this is often something that's overlooked doing the bridge assembly service like this. And I've got a separate video on the YouTube channel on just this subject, and it's actually for pen reels, but this is actually very similar to a pen reel. And in fact, the man that went to develop pen reels was a former employee of Ocean City Reels, actually, named Otto Hines. And so, you know, for those of you that don't know that, Ocean City was an older company than Penn, and a lot of what we find in pen reels this day and age, to an extent, I think you can safely say some of those things originated from Ocean City reels. So, all right, so once that pin's back in, you're good to go there. Clean this this hard washer off, and we're going to put that back into position there. Now, we've got our drag stack, okay? This is a pretty typical drag stack, and I'm just going to pull these out one by one. This still has the leather washers intact, actually, and you can reuse those as long as they're not cracked or frayed or, you know, anything of that sort, okay? You want to clean the teeth off really well, brass wire brush. Just get this as clean as you possibly can. There is a little bit of pitting on the bottom here, unfortunately, that there's not much I can do about that, but I got it as clean as possible. Okay, and then once you're done with that and it's all nice and clean, you're going to put that back into position like so. All right, and then you just want to clean off these washers, okay? But you can see, you know, these are nice leather washers. They have some flex to them. And that's how drag systems came back in those days. They used leather washers. That was before the advent of Carbon Tex fiber washers and things of that sort, okay? But these washers are in good shape for sure, so there's nothing wrong with those. Keyed washer. Last leather washer goes on like so. Don't be afraid to take some 4-0 steel wool to some of these drag washers, the metal ones. Okay. All right, so the bridge assembly is essentially done. Now, after you've cleaned up all your pieces and parts, assuming that you're ready to start putting them back into position, you can start with this piece here. You want to take your blue grease and make sure that you get some blue grease on these teeth here. Beautiful, beautiful metal Levelwind gear. I mean, that's just really cool. You know, it's really solid. Okay, you have your housing all cleaned on the inside here. I'm going to stick that back in there like so. And then essentially we're just going to put our bridge assembly back in. Now this is kind of the neat part of the reel here, is that you can put this piece back, and also make note that you can put this sleeve back in. There were a couple of different styles of sleeves. This one you can put back in after all this bridge assembly is put back through the reel, but I'm going to put it back in just for the sake of doing it right now. Okay, but then you can slide this back into position here. Nice little snap. Okay. And then what you can do here to simplify things, and don't forget to hose all this down with some penetrating oil, all these screws and whatnot. I've already done all this, so I'm not gonna do it again, but I'm just once again walking you through all the steps, talking you through what needs to be done. Okay, now note that the two bottom screws for the bridge assembly are longer than the two top ones. Okay, that's just something that you want to make note of. Okay, and then once you have those in position, you can start turning those in some, so then that way you don't have to keep your hands on this. But just take your time. Take pictures along the way, take videos along the way, watch this video. That's really what these videos are about, is, you know, if you have this reel and you want to service it, you know, or if you just simply want to learn more about it, how it functions, the mechanics and whatnot, you know, that's really what these videos are meant for. Okay, so now that's in position there. Okay. So now you can put that off to the side. Make sure you finish doing all your cleaning of your pinion gear. Get all these teeth cleaned out with that penetrating oil and the brass wire brush and whatnot. Okay, and then at this point, we're going to go back and we're going to put our pieces and parts back in here. So this guy here, all right, it's got this little slot right here, and this is where the eccentric jack slides through, okay? And you have to make sure that these are in the appropriate position when you do this, otherwise it'll never go back together quite right. Okay, so there's two of them here, and springs go over them, like so, okay? And as you can see, they kind of like to get away on you here, but we're gonna keep at it here until we get it. I also find that putting a little bit of blue grease in those holes before you put those pieces in does help kind of keep them steady. Don't forget to hit your eccentric roller with a little bit of blue grease. And then these springs are going to go back on top. Okay. And then you got your pinion yoke. You want to clean that off really well with the 4-0 steel wool, okay, and then hit some blue grease on that, okay, and then these pieces are going to go together like so, and you're going to put them back into position. And this is where it gets a little tricky sometimes, but you just kind of have to slowly work at it. All right, you press down on that. Here's your eccentric jack. You want to do a little bit of blue grease on this jack right here. And try not to overdo it too much, just a little bit underneath like so. Okay. And then you're going to slide that back into position like so. You're going to go over that snap, and then the fork goes back around that. You're going to cinch down the screw so it doesn't go anywhere. It's great mechanics, great design, this whole setup. You can't go wrong with this. It's really, really good. Good quality. Okay. Don't be afraid just to hit a little bit of blue grease on top here of the pinion gear right there, just to help that along. Okay, now you've got 2 screws. Okay, so you still want to apply some pressure to this, but there's 2 screws that need to go into those slots here underneath, all right? So once you've gotten all that put back together, you can start turning those screws in from underneath. You don't want to over tighten them, but you do want to snug them up. Okay. Just do a little bit more blue grease here and up here. Okay, so we got good functionality there, so that's good. Okay, so once we're done there, you know, that's pretty much it for all the innards on this handle side here. Okay, so what I like to do now is come back to the other part of the reel here. We're ready to put our spool back into position here. And obviously this is a take-apart design, but it's not quite as easy as the 250 model, mainly because it's got these 3 screws here, but they are bigger thumb screws, if you will. Okay, so now we can just make sure you do a quick inspection, make sure that you know, you haven't overlooked any extra dirt or old grease or anything like that, and then we will slide this back into position like so. Yeah, great mechanics on this reel for sure. They really did think it through. Just, you know, with the quality of the parts and the metal and whatnot. You can just take a stubby screwdriver to these. Okay. You can see that Levelwind is moving real nice there. Okay, so now we're just going to go back and we're going to put these pieces and parts back into position here. So there's a tension washer, and then we've got our star wheel that goes back on, like so. I did find that another cool thing that Ocean City did is they made these 2 slots inside the bridge sleeve right here, so that you can get a screwdriver, a big screwdriver at that, to actually tighten down on these threads right here, because they are rather tight and they just kind of come that way from the factory. So if you find yourself having to do that, just use caution and make sure that you don't strip anything or gouge yourself in the process, because it can be rather tight. Okay, and then at this point you should be able to put on your handle, and that can kind of help keep it in place as you continue to tighten it down so that it's nice and flat, your handle. Okay, put your handle nut back on like so. You can tighten it up with your handle wrench. Snug it up ever so gently, and then you should be able to line this up. You might have to go back and loosen up the nut ever so slightly or tighten it just a little bit more. I'm going to just loosen it up. It doesn't have to be torqued or anything of that fashion. Okay. It goes back on like that. And we're going to try it out. Try out our drag. This has got a really nice smooth drag on it. Very smooth. So those leather washers are still in really good shape for sure. Okay. And the free spool is working good. And we heard the clicker. So there you have it. That is the Ocean City Inductor Model 255, all serviced up and ready to go. Thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, please do subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification button. And we'll see you next time.